Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Cole. It's Wednesday evening, August 20th, and this will be the week one video for Political Science 1013 on the first 8-week schedule for fall 2025. Everybody, these are generally going to be going out on Sunday, but we're starting the term in the middle of the week, so I wanted to get a message to you on the first day of class. You should have received a series of emails this morning. That information also is all up on the course website under announcements, and you'll see the announcements on the home page when you first open up the page and click on that tile. It's fixed to show the most recent 15 announcements, so everything should be on the home page, everything that we sent out as emails this morning. Everybody, I want to just very quickly go through the syllabus and the course requirements, and then say a few words about Unit 1, and that will do it for today. We're going to have an exam coming up on September 3rd. Labor Day is the 1st, and so that'll give us a day to come back from Labor Day after we do the exam. It will cover Units 1 and 2, and I'll say something about Unit 2 in my message this weekend. But looking at the syllabus, everybody, the textbook is available for purchase as a hard copy from the online bookstore. It is also available electronically, and if you do not want to purchase it, I have links to the electronic version of all the chapters I have assigned on the syllabus in the modules area of the course website. So click on modules and you will see that, and it may not be necessary for you to purchase a hard copy of the textbook. I use the textbook as supplementary to my class notes. For the exam coming up on the 3rd, you're going to need to look at the class notes for Units 1 and 2, and I hope you will look at the assigned textbook chapters as well. Then in addition to that, there are 4 articles you're asked to look at online, and a good bit of the exam will come from those. Now, when you click on the links, you might want to click on those links as soon as you find that message, like today, just to be sure that you can access those, and you may wish to print them out. These come by and large from publications that allow me a certain number of gift links, and so I've tried to put those gift links in those messages. So the links should work. If they do not, please contact me. If you run into a paywall, contact me. You shouldn't have to pay for any of this. If you hit a paywall, I will find a way to get the material to you free of charge. So please don't feel that you have to pay for any of the material that I send to you over the course of the term. There will be 4 exams, so they'll be coming up at the rate of once about every 12 days, or every couple of weeks, to get through this in 8 weeks. There is also a set of threaded discussions. There will be 5 of those over the course of the term. They count 10 points each, so all taken together, they count half as much as an exam. Okay. You've got 1 opportunity for extra credit with an introduce yourself message, and I've received 1 or 2 messages on that already. You may do a term paper. It's not absolutely required, but if you do, it can take the place of a score on one of your first 3 exams if the paper score should turn out to be higher. Everybody has to take the final exam. And please notice, everybody, if you want to do a term paper, you need to message me about your choice of topic 2 weeks in advance of the due date, which comes at the end of the term. And that is all spelled out in more detail in the syllabus, which has been emailed to you. Okay, it's up on the course website, and it's in the announcements area attached to the version of that message that I sent out that included the syllabus. So there's several places where the syllabus should be accessible, and you should have it. So those are the requirements in a nutshell. There are 450 points available on the 90, 80, 60 scale. That means 405 is the minimum for an A, and so on, every 45 points, down to 60% being the minimum for a passing grade with a D. And once again, that is all in the course website. All right, so those are the course requirements, the rules and regulations in a nutshell. We will have our first discussion Monday and Tuesday. Discussions are open for 48 hours. You are asked to post at least twice for full credit. Post initially and then post in response to one of your classmates. This week's assignment involves a seminar at Johns Hopkins University where students were asked to express themselves about how they feel about the political system, and I hope that that'll be something that's of interest to you. That will be coming up Monday and Tuesday. I believe that's the 25th and 26th. And that'll be the first discussion. You have 48 hours to get 2 posts in. Okay. Post initially and then post in response to one of your classmates for full credit. All right then, everybody, looking at Unit 1. Unit 1 is called Political Participation. Many instructors would start with the Constitution. We're going to get to the Constitution before midterm, but we're going to start with a unit on political participation. And I have a few preliminary things to get out of the way at the beginning of that set of class notes for Unit 1. You may have noticed in that barrage of announcements I sent out this morning, emails, one of them is based on the third slide in that set of class notes. And it has to do with where we are now after the November 2024 election, now in the second presidential term of Donald Trump, interrupted by one term of Joe Biden, as we know. Everyone, Trump has got a lot of people discombobulated. Of course, some people like him very much and others do not. And I imagine views among my students will be mixed. I am not radically changing what I teach because of Trump, because among other things, I tell people, you can never tell the significance of something like this until after the fact. So it's probably wise not to get too bent out of shape over ongoing events. And some people are. On the other hand, some people are happy about what's going on. People support or oppose these people, like Trump or Biden or whomever, for all kinds of reasons. So I hope you'll take a look at that email, which is a repeat of what's in the third side of the class notes for Unit 1. And I'll try to lay out to you my stance and the position that I try to take as your instructor, trying to be fair to everybody as we go through this course material and look at where we stand in the political system in 2025. Now, I go on to make some comments about democracy and the concept of democracy, which is kind of important. It's a fraught term, the meaning of which is subject to dispute. But on the other hand, I'm supposed to be teaching you about American democracy. So I hope you will take a look at the comments that I make about that at the very outset of this first set of class notes. Now, from there, everybody, we go on to talk about different ways in which you can participate. And there are many ways. You could try to turn yourself into an advertisement of a kind. You could go around wearing buttons or putting bumper stickers on your vehicle or signs in your yard. And the candidates and the political parties want you to do this. The more visible they are, the more seriously people take them. You could contribute money to a politician or a political party or a pressure group. You could attend public meetings. You could interact with people online on websites and social media sites and comment on events that take place in the news as time goes on. You could eventually, if you're sufficiently motivated, run for public office. I mentioned most candidates for public office are successful professionals in their communities. Perhaps it would be a better thing if they weren't all professionals. Okay? We used to have a fair number of, shall we say, blue-collar as well as white-collar people involved in the political system. Maybe not as many blue-collar people as before. Very often they would work their way into the political system by means of their involvement with organized labor. But predominantly, it's well-connected, visible, successful professionals in a particular community who end up running for public office. Now, all those things that we've named we can call conventional participation, or working within the system. But sometimes things are taken to an extreme and people think working within the conventional means is not enough. So they move on to unconventional means of participation, by which we largely mean protest behavior. The problem with protest behavior is that it can spill over into violence. Nevertheless, people do feel strongly enough that they take part in protest. Often it's not without intending that it become violent, but when people are moved to protest, it's because something has motivated them very strongly to go outside the conventional bounds. And that means violence may be a possibility. And it's happened all the way from the French Revolution to January 6, 2021. So, not necessarily something that your instructor advocates resort to violence. But on the other hand, some people say, a country founded in a revolution, maybe resort to something like that cannot be absolutely ruled out in the most extreme situation. It's worth thinking about. So there's many ways in which you can participate, conventional and unconventional. However, the second half or so of those class notes is taken up with the subject of voting. Okay. Largely, this is a unit about voting. We call it political participation, but voting in elections are a very important aspect of that. Now, by itself, the act of voting, if you do nothing else, is pretty passive. It doesn't require that much of a commitment on your part. You may have to register in advance and then take some time on election day to go to the polls. And there are scholars who would tell you, well, your participation will be more effective if you do other things than just voting. Furthermore, in something like a presidential election with tens of millions of votes being cast, it's easy to take the point of view that your vote is just a drop in the bucket, not a point of view I encourage you to take, because this is political science class. Sometimes we say, from the perspective of the economics profession, you can look at your vote as just a drop in the bucket because it takes some time and trouble. The expected benefit is to see your preferred candidate win, but what is the chance that your vote is going to bring that about? Especially if there are large numbers of votes being cast. In any case, it's voting in election who determines who wins and who gets to hold public office, and so it is important in that respect. And one thing I say early on in the class notes is, these politicians, cynical about them as we might want to be at times, we do see them speaking, acting, and behaving very often with one eye on what the voters are going to think. So there does seem to be some capacity for the voters to hold them accountable, although they also can come back and try to manipulate the voters. But voting and elections are important, if for no other reason than that they determine who gets to hold public office. Now, when it comes to voting, there are two issues. There's vote choice. What influences the voter to make a vote choice one way or the other, for Trump or Kamala Harris or for the Republicans or the Democrats or whomever is on the ballot in a particular election? But there's a preliminary question that comes before that. When we consider that many people vote, but many people do not. And so you have to decide whether or not you're going to turn out before you can make the vote choice. So there's two questions, turnout and vote choice. Now, for a long time in American politics, we believed that those who turned out were considerably different from those who did not. And that made a difference. Our turnout is not the highest in the world, although the past couple of presidential elections have been so dramatic, it has served to boost turnout at least a little bit. The latest information, the latest speculation we have from political scientists about voters versus non-voters is that voters and non-voters differ largely in terms of age. People tend to take this more seriously and vote more regularly as they get older. 18 to 21-year-olds, well, they're eligible to vote, and some of them do, but that's the one demographic category that has the lowest turnout of all. Okay. Now, rich people versus poor, black versus white versus brown, male versus female, it seems to have evened out and balanced out somewhat. We used to think that more affluent white voters were more liable to turn out. But it's not so clear that that's the case anymore. For one thing, the Trump phenomena has scrambled people's political preferences. So we have both affluent people and people who are not so well off on both sides. So it kind of makes it hard to assess. But one thing we can definitely say is that people tend to turn out and vote at a greater rate as they get older. Now, when we look at vote choice, you'll find we have a great deal to say. There are many things that can influence a voter. Okay? You'll notice one concept we emphasize above all is party identification. Okay? Once somebody identifies with one party or the other, such that they say to themselves, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, that's a very important determinant of their vote. They don't always vote their party. Sometimes they cross over, but that's the single best way to predict somebody's vote. One problem that we have is that these days more and more people are independent. Okay? Sometimes it seems as though only half the public or so are either Republicans or Democrats. The rest are independents. Now, one thing about independents is very often they say they're independent, but they may end up leaning very heavily one way or the other. In other words, they may vote for one party most of the time, even though they say they're independent. Okay? But if somebody identifies as either a Republican or a Democrat, then if you know that information, that's the best way, perhaps, to predict somebody's vote, if you have that piece of information. Individual candidates and issues of the day can have an influence. And there are many scholars who have built complicated models of voting to try to figure out what factors will influence the way people vote. Many scholars believe the condition of the economy has a great influence. Okay? If times are good, okay, then you may tend to support the party in power, giving them credit for doing a good job. We call that nature of the times voting. Okay? Other influences that we discuss, that you'll see as you read through the class notes, where you put yourself on the political spectrum from left to right. You might tend to vote for the party that's closest to you on the political spectrum. If you identify as being part of a particular group of people, that can also be an influence, because we have the idea that the Democrats or the Republicans are closer to some groups of people than others. And at the very last, we throw in the issue of celebrity endorsements, because some people have very little political component to their vote, except they maybe possibly they could be swayed by the influence of somebody like Taylor Swift if she would have come out with a presidential endorsement right before a presidential election. So there are many things that can influence, but above all, it's a voter's party identification. If they identify with one party or the other, that's the best single piece of information you can have to help predict somebody's vote. Okay, everybody, that will be it for week one. We'll be talking to you again over the weekend. Once again, we have a discussion coming up Monday and Tuesday, the 25th and 26th. And our exam will be coming up after Labor Day on Wednesday, September 3rd. Take it easy, study hard. Contact me as needed. You can reach me through the inbox on the course website or through your OPSU email at david.cole@opsu.edu. So we'll see you in a few days.